2, 1. What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. Tonight, I have a very special guest. Andrew Brown is in the building. How you doing, Andrew?
Great, man. How you doing, 34?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a Sunday night. I guess we're all getting into that rotation of starting the week again. I don't know. Some people get anxious on Sunday nights, and sometimes I do, depending on what's coming up. But so I'm chilling. Yeah. How about yourself?
I am outstanding like a farmer in the field. There are so many things that I'm looking forward to, and that Sunday for me begins the week and all of the things that I look forward to for the week. There was a time when I would dread the week ahead, and I found that it just left me to dread that time. Now, in the instance where I find something to be excited about or look forward to, it ends up making those dreaded times go by faster for me.
No doubt. Well, for the folks who are unfamiliar with the show, we do have some intro questions, some warm-up questions just to set the tone, and then after that I have a little icebreaker for you. I think the icebreaker actually comes first before more into the warm-up questions, and then after that we jump into the main portion of the interview where you begin choosing numbers between 1 and 34, and that's how we get the conversation rolling. Sound good to you, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, my very first question for you is, how have you been? It's been a crazy couple of years, and we're all coming out of it. It feels like sooner rather than later at this point. So how have you been?
I have been privileged because I feel that I have the kinds of problems that other people wish that they had. The pandemic happened 400 and some odd days ago, and that my work as a software specialist had me move from working in an office to working from home. There was a seamless transition for me working. The work that I do is providing service to other companies in their managing of HR and payroll. So as the pandemic was happening, I was seeing how companies were mass terminating people or mass laying off people.
Whoa.
While I'm sitting cushy at home, typing away on my workstation, connecting with some of these different people. Fast forward to the months of getting accustomed to like working from home, and my wife always threatening to go to HR about sexual harassment claims, but I keep telling her they won't do anything because she doesn't work for the company.
I got you.
It's been a fun couple of months, in that we both are fortunate that we both work for software companies where we can work from home, and now that we're coming out of it, and I guess that things are starting back up, we're starting to get back with the normal run-of-the-mill problems, I guess.
Yep.
Where it's whose baby shower are we gonna go to, or whose baby's birthday are we gonna go to?
I got you.
But the past few months have been good. They've been good to us. We've been fortunate not to have been diagnosed with any major illnesses, and we've also been fortunate to have a successful pregnancy. So far we're celebrating 28 weeks pregnant, and it's been a roller coaster of excitement and emotions, and wanting to connect with family members and friends, but can't because we've taken on this nomadic mindset of staying at home and wiping down the groceries before they make it inside, or greeting my neighbors with a face mask. Been good. We've survived the pandemic, and things are looking good. I got vaccinated. Dealing with that aftermath is fun and exciting. I was very excited about the Johnson & Johnson shot until they started talking about blood clot this and blood clot that. As a Jamaican national, I found it exciting and interesting to listen to the news station broadcast talking about the blood clots that Johnson and Johnson vaccine was reported to have caused. The word blood clot to me is similar to a curse word. So listening to the news and just earshot of them talking about blood clot this and blood clot that, it's almost as if CNN kept on saying fuck, bitch, dick.
Yeah, it's just irritating.
Litany of them. Right. It wasn't irritating, but it was like somebody forgot to bleep that out. It's the live feed, and they're interviewing somebody that they should be interviewing. But like I said, those are the types of things that I know other people wish they could complain about, and I feel privileged, and that's how I've been doing. How
For sure. I've been doing fine. Well, first off, I want to say congratulations on the baby. You know, 28 weeks. You're past the halfway point, right?
Yes. 40 weeks is supposed to be the term, but this baby's got a scheduled arrival in 10 weeks.
Wow. For the first one for you?
Yes.
I guess the craziest ride, right? Since it's the first one.
I keep telling myself it'll be fine. Everything is gonna be just fine.
Yeah. You know, to answer your question as well, I'm doing fine. I feel like I've known 3 people who had quarantine babies. Oh, that's a bad term to put on them, right? But
no, it's not. It's a sign of the times. They are indeed quarantine babies that either came about during the quarantine or came about as a result of the quarantine.
Exactly. So it's a lot of joyous moments. You know, it's been a balance as far as the highs and lows. You know, outside like yourself, I feel very privileged as well. I don't think I've had to encounter as many struggles as most people in the world during the pandemic. So, you know, just counting my blessings, and you know, not trying to downplay what Corona's meant to our society. But, you know, I think there's been some things that have come out that are even more powerful, you know, on a individual level, and also as a society as a whole. I think the direction and kind of awareness that people have has been a little bit heightened, and who knows, right now it's a bad thing, but I hope it leads to better things, you know.
Yeah. Usually happens post-disaster.
I'd like to think so. I'd like to hope so.
That happens. I live in South Florida. Grew up in South Florida, grew up in Jamaica. The hurricane season is one of those times where I guess the results of the pandemic have had us do, but just in shorter periods of time. So you can't leave the house to go anywhere. Well, that's because everything's locked down because we're in hurricane watch. Like, I'm just painting this scenario. And then after the hurricane passes, you can't go to the stores to get food because there's no power. And then you can insert the litany of other things that might happen post-storm. You then depend on your neighbors for help or support if like a tree has fallen in front of your front door and you can't get out of your house. Well, I hope Dan next door comes over and remembers that I brew beer, and he'll, you know, check on the beer, if not check on me. But every time there's a storm, natural disaster, I always find, especially when I'm in a scenario of being around the community, that's where the community as a whole ends up being better because of it. I'd always argue that there cannot be good without bad, and we cannot have joy for the times of good without having the sorrow of the times that there are bad. So we'll be better for it.
I feel you. I gotta ask you, have you gotten used to hurricane season? Like, it's not even a big thing to you anymore?
Yeah, it's I remember, so living on the island, we had limited access to information. And I remember when our local news station, or local television station, JTV, would broadcast the Weather Channel. So it's amazing. You guys know this is coming? I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Then growing up with that and then fanaticizing over between June and November. Oh, all right, I've got to spend 2 hours doing my own version of storm tracking. And I feel like, well, yeah, most people that live in this part of the equator kind of have a sixth sense about storms and like what they're going to do and what they're going to which direction they're gonna turn. Like I can go outside and tell you, it seems like a hurricane's coming right now.
Wow. Okay.
But no, I do find it fun to track and make my own predictions. I do find it sad lately though that all of the major storms miss South Florida and hit other places that aren't accustomed to storms.
Is that you chalk that up to climate change at all? I don't know anything. So.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I remember when I was younger though, I always thought you could just send a tank of liquid nitrogen and blow it up inside of a hurricane and then you wouldn't have any issues. But as I grew older, I went to school down here, and in one of those, was it ecology? I can't remember. One of those natural science classes, we discussed what hurricanes do, how they form, and what action they complete in nature. We talk about climate change and how the temperatures around the world are slowly going to extremes. Hurricanes are heat engines and essentially drive off of that heat. There are those that would argue because of the unnatural high temperatures around the world, this contributes to the increase and greater intensity of hurricanes. The actual hurricane is a heat engine and drives itself off of heat. It becomes an area of organized local thunderstorms, and the wind forces that drive those thunderstorms and that precipitation cause the water down to depths to churn. So you have cold water that's now churning up to the surface, and as it gets to the surface, the hurricane takes up the cold water and then it loses its power. That action, as it's spiraling in a circle, is essentially churning up cold water in the sea. And the churn of cold water is bringing nutrients from the bottom of the sea up to the top of the sea and then feeding the sea life food chain, I guess you could call it, for it to then trickle down. So a consequence of climate change is causing weather events that are set to correct the temperature. So I feel conflicted in saying that hurricanes are a detriment result of climate change because their simple existence encourages a return to homeostasis.
I got you. That's pretty crazy.
Right.
That's an interesting thing to think about. So more hurricanes is what you're asking for.
Are we though?
Well, I'm thinking
just
like
the ones that go in the water and just go in a circle and don't hit anything, but mess up the shipping routes and then cause a delay in our IKEA furniture. It's a double-edged sword. You damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah, where can we do it safely? You know, where can we generate these things where it doesn't hurt anybody?
Bring back the liquid nitrogen bombs. So much easier.
So I'm from California, and I've never really had to deal with hurricanes. So if I was ever to come encounter one, I'd probably lose my shit a little bit the first time.
No, you have time though. It's not like an earthquake where it just happens. We know days, weeks beforehand that something's coming. It might come by, it might not, but we'll know. What's the other thing that you deal with? The fires in California.
Yeah, fires and earthquakes are a big thing out here, and our droughts. But yeah, I would say I get that similar kind of feeling when earthquakes happen and someone from out of town isn't used to it. We pretty much sit still and we kind of sit and wait, and we wonder if it lasts a certain amount of time, then we can start getting worried.
So I guess are you able to, through that experience, guess as to like what scale the earthquake is?
That's a scary thing because I don't think I can, and the only reason why it's just been so normal is because I felt small tremors and all those things, I can only remember one when I was a child where it felt like it was even crazier, where we ran out the house and, you know, made sure that we weren't in the building. But other than that, it's always been a lot of sitting and waiting and, you know, just like, oh, it's gonna pass, it's gonna pass. So when it does happen, I don't know how, like, you know, when it happens, like, am I giving myself 10 seconds or am I giving myself 20 seconds? Like, so yeah, that's, I think for a lot of Californians, it's like that. I want to say we feel too confident in our abilities to gauge whether or not this is the big one. So yeah,
It's like you don't have a choice at that point, right? You're in it, like it's happening.
yeah, and if you're not prepared, like, that's a whole nother thing. I know when I was in school, they taught us to have an emergency bag and be ready, but, you know, as an adult, it's like, you know, you should know that already.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm supposed to have, what was it, 1 gallon per person per day stored for water and meals for 5 days. Yeah. No, but like, if a hurricane comes and we lose power, well, we're cooking everything that's in the fridge. We have some propane and charcoal. But for the instance of, like, yeah, my mind's going a mile a minute now, coming up with like final destination scenarios of like, this is it, this is the earthquake that's gonna fuck everything up, and we're gonna have to hoof it, you know, 10 miles down the road because all of the infrastructure is messed up, and then people's gas lines are leaking and houses are blowing up. This is like, Armageddon just happened in my head with this whole earthquake situation. I don't understand how you could like continue about your day and not worry. Well, millions of people do it, so it should be fine.
I feel like I'm gonna worry about it a little bit more now.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth, and you know, maybe we should be talking about it, thinking about it more. But I will say, ever since I was a kid, every year, I hear or see the headline, "This is the year. It's gonna be the big one," and it hasn't happened. So that's what I guess has desensitized a bunch of Californians as well. Is that we hear about it all the time, and it hasn't happened. Knocking on wood right now, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's always like I think about it all the time. What would I do in that scenario? Where would I go? Who am I gonna try to get in contact with? And all these things that you gotta kind of think about if it happens. You know, it's a trip. But anyways, let's keep the interview rolling. Don't be sorry at all. I like these organic conversations, and wherever it takes us, that's where it takes us. It's all good with me. But let's jump into the icebreaker. And I don't know if you've heard any of the previous episodes, but I like to do a little spelling bee. It's a one word spelling bee. Feel free to participate. Feel free to pass if you'd like as well. So it's up to you. You down?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. As a heads up, I did get this from a Google search of 100 most often misspelled words in the English language. So, and I'm just going through it, looking for a good one. All right, let's try occasionally.
Occasionally, OCCASIONNALLY. Occasionally.
I believe you didn't you put 2 N's in there, and if you put two N's. Huh?
Too many N's. I did put 2 N's, yes.
Then you got one more chance. Go ahead and try it one more time.
Occasionally. OCCASIONNALLY. Occasionally.
Congratulations. You got that one. You got it on the second try. And I will let you know right now, that means you've qualified for the Spelling Bee tournament of 34 questions when you go up against other guests who have come on and gotten their word right. I will let you know future details. Still trying to figure out how to piece it all together. But yeah. Well, thank you. All right. A few more warm-up questions. We're still in the warm-up phase of 34 questions. This next question is, what would you like the audience to know about you?
I try to leave the world in a better place than I found it.
Can you elaborate a little more? Like, how would you say you do that, if you don't mind
So
sharing?
I do it experience by experience. I thrive and find joy in the experience of connecting with people, whether it be through the work that I do, or my friends, or my family, or just in the conversations that you and I are having. And through our connection, me leaving an impression on you, my friends, my coworkers, my clients, or customers, that makes them think that they can do something that is for their betterment or the betterment of the people around them. Like, I know that when we get done with our interview today, you're going to do your due diligence in ensuring that you put a go bag together just in case that earthquake does come.
Oh, no.
Like, thanks, Andrew. If we hadn't had that conversation, or if you are in a scenario where you come visit South Florida during hurricane season and find out that the storm's coming, and you think, well, it's not that serious. There's so many South Floridians that just make parties out of it, so I won't fret too much. But the way in which that I look forward to making a change in the world is through the connections that I make with people and enlightening their lives or day in one way, shape, or form.
I hear you, man. I am 100% with you, and so I think that could be a reason why you decided to come onto the show. I definitely appreciate that. That's something that I hope people feel that energy from me as well. I just want to connect. I just want to have it be a positive experience in someone's life, since we all are passerbyers in each other's lives. So again, I appreciate that. Let me ask you, you find it harder to connect with, is it easier to connect with people as a kid or as an adult?
I found a newspaper clipping of when I was 8, walking through one of the Plaza's shops. I guess there was some guy with a camera, a really nice camera, and I wanted him to take a picture of me. The person was a reporter, and he was asking kids this is in Jamaica, and it's a very Christian country. So the reporter was asking kids, what does he want Jesus to leave him for Christmas? So I told the reporter that what would we get Jesus for Christmas? I would get Jesus a camera so he could take my picture and show people in heaven. I was 8. I told this guy that.
Okay.
So he took my picture and he put it in the paper. But then fast forward to I work for a software company that works with quite a few different businesses, and I will connect with people who I've never spoken to or otherwise had a connection with, who are freaking or flipping out about some important issue to them. And I will get a kick out of connecting with them, bringing them down to level, and then fixing the Rubik's Cube of whatever issue that they're having. And I can't gauge the joy or complexity that I had as a child in comparison to how it is now, because I feel like my ease in doing that is as a result of doing it from being a child. So, to answer your question, I think it's easier for me to connect with people as I'm older than it were as a child, because of the many experiences that I had.
For sure. I know that question, there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody has.
Yes, there is, and I give you the right answer.
For you, you sure did. But yeah, I think that's totally interesting, because, for me, I was one of the more talkative kids in class, and I never really thought that would be something that would be a part of my personality. And now I just enjoy talking to people, and so it's just one of those things where as a kid you don't really for me, if I was going to answer that question, I want to say it was easier as a kid for me. I don't know why it's been a little bit harder for me as I've gotten older. I think it's also the experiences that I've had kind of either jading me or taking a different approach. But yeah, that's an interesting one. But I feel like our childhoods to how we feel now it's a little different. would say there's like less people now willing to open up as there were when I was a kid. I don't know if that's the same for you. Like, try to make that connection and they're more closed off. Or maybe you could just.
I love those people. Go for a walk. Good morning. Buenos dias. Oh, so we don't speak either of them today?
Yeah.
I went on a vacation with family, and we did an Airbnb. This was June of last year, so it was very. All right, we're all gonna quarantine for 14 days, and then we're gonna come together and then have this vacation, and then we're gonna go home and quarantine for 14 days. This was June in 2020, and tensions were high in the political atmosphere. And I get along with my family great. The lake, though, that we were going to, I guess, had residents who were supporters of a particular political party that had some of those family members concerned about my safe being. But me, the happy-go-lucky, want to talk to everybody person, is like, no, I'll be fine. Let them come. I'd love to talk to some people today. That didn't happen. But it was just one of those things where it's like, I do look forward to that, connecting with people that want to be blocked off. But no, I think you're right. In comparison to the types of people that I would connect with as a child versus now, like other 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds wouldn't be as blocked off as 30, 40, and 50-year-olds.
Yeah, unfortunately. But there's always those instances you find people, like ourselves, who are like, oh, let's chop it up, Yeah. So we're out there. There's dozens of us. But yeah. Second question for you in this warm up is, if someone were to pay you a tribute, how would you like to be honored? If I was gonna tell myself I wanted to do something in your honor, what could I do?
Give everybody a scratch-off ticket.
That is my new jam, man. Like, yes. Just for Mother's Day, I bought all the mothers a scratch-off ticket.
Yes. The excitement. Best $2 I ever spent.
And you never know. Something happens.
Right. It could turn into something, and then is it really bad at that point when you go back to the person? Hey, man, you want to break me off? What? I mean,
I would leave it up to them. I would have to just be like, bite that bullet and be like, that was the gift, that was the intention, that was, what it was meant to be. And if hopefully that person is appreciative, but if they're not, then I gotta move on with my life. And just knowing that could have been my ticket. That's an interesting story. I've never heard anyone tell that story of like, oh yeah, I gave out scratchers for the holidays and someone hit big and
it's just perfect.
That'd be a funny story for sure. Oh, depending on who you're looking at, which side you're looking at it at. For sure, I'll do that. I will do that in your honor, no doubt. And then my last question of the warm-up is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself? You mind me asking how you came to that number?
So we talked about the different ways that I may have thought when I was a child versus now, and how easy it may be for me now versus when I was a child to interact with people, and me saying that I felt it's easier for me now because of the experiences that I had. I think back to maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, and how I thought about the world and how I think about it now, and I realize that it's through my experiences that I know myself and continue to define myself. And I've never gone through the experience of being a father. so I don't know what I'll be then, and then insert other experiences that I can't think of right now. But because of that unknown, is that I will label it as the 20% of what I don't know about myself. It's that 20% of the experiences that I haven't gone through to then say, this is how I would respond to that scenario. I often play out scenarios in my head because that's fun, I guess.
Yeah.
And I use that as a way to try to gauge or simulate how I may respond to a particular scenario, but nothing beats being in a situation and then life playing itself out.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
That's 8.
What would you say is your favorite thing about your personality?
I don't know.
Too many things?
No. It does come back to connecting with people. It does come back to it. It always comes back to like making people smile and having that connection to do some part on an individual's life to make them feel good for however long. What is it? There's a army commercial maybe 20 years ago. If someone wrote a book about your life, would anyone read it? And that's always stuck with me, in that like, I wanted to always be a chapter in some other person's book. Like, oh, let's get to the Andrew Brown chapter. Or, yeah.
Wow, yes. I haven't heard that quote kind of flipped in that way. So, yeah, that's enlightening. Right on.
I lost my train of thought, but
It's all good. It happens to me all the time. For sure. Well, we finally made it to the main portion of the interview, where you get to start choosing numbers between 1 and 34.
Okay.
Would you like to start at the easy, medium, or hard level?
Hard.
Going straight to the deep end.
Right. You know, when you get a new video game, do you start it on easy, medium, or hard?
I'm a normal person. You know, I go medium.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You know, so I'm not a big video gamer. I do play like the sports games. I'm a sucker for Madden and 2K and all that stuff. When it comes to adventure games, I like open world stuff. My problem is if I ever get stuck, then I lose complete interest. I'm like so frustrated. I'm like, I'm not gonna play this game anymore. So I give up easily. That's one of my downfalls. But
I can understand.
yeah, I think Sonic Adventure was one of those games, man. Like I was going through it, I got stuck on like 80% of the game, and I was like, I never finished it. And yeah, I just noticed that pattern with me.
Brought me back with Sonic Adventure.
Yeah, man. You know, it's that was our childhood. But yeah. All right, let's jump for it. Give me your first number.
Oh, right, 14.
14. How could you be kinder to yourself?
How could I be kinder to myself? Expectations, right? Having reasonable expectations for myself. Having a normal expectation for myself. How can I be kinder to myself? How can I be less stressful? Yeah, the expectations that I set on myself are the ones that I would say it's the only form of not being kind to myself. The expectations that I set for myself are those that I feel compelled to accomplish. I have a big problem with separating work and home, especially with the pandemic, and I'm the one that at Sunday at 2 o'clock in the morning, why is this client emailing me? Let me see if I can help them with whatever it is that they need. And that's not expected of me by others, but it's more so my own expectation of myself to not be holding back something that might help somebody else, and then feeding into my desire to bring joy to others. I think I could be kinder to myself by making the expectations of myself a little bit more reasonable.
Would you say it's hard to say no? I mean, for me, I feel like in the workplace, I feel like I can relate to you in that sense of where, you know, it's always like, of course I can do it, but do it right now? Or, you know, stuff like that. I don't know. But would you say it's hard to say no?
It's the environment that I work in is always in the spirit of partnership. So yes, it is very hard to say no.
I see.
It's hard to say no in my organization, and it's hard to say no me as an individual. So
just compounds.
Right, and then I'm stuck in this never-ending tube of setting priorities and resetting priorities, and then deciding what might have to fall to the wayside because I can't really take care of everything. Yeah, it's hard to say no.
Feel you. Could you say that was from any particular reason why that's a part of you? For me, you know, it's fun. I had this conversation with my friend, and we both were talking about how it's hard for us to say no, and she was just like, "Oh, it's probably because that's how we were raised." You know, if we were always trying to please our parents and, you know, not trying to disappoint them, you know, it's always a yes. It's always yes. Of course, I can do it. But yeah, would you say it's similar? You don't have to get too much into it, but yeah, that for me, I think it stemmed from that.
You mentioned childhood, and then I started thinking to myself, just like, when was the last time I told my parents no? And it's only been as of late that I told my parents no. But no, you're right. As a kid, you'd never say no, mommy, no, daddy. Yes, but even if they call it yes, daddy.
Yeah. Oh, you never say what? I don't know if you
Right.
ever
No.
you never say what.
No.
Yeah.
Wanted to time travel. No.
Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah. So.
But I'm with you on. Yeah, because I mean, isn't that what I've been delving into all of these different parenting topics, and I came across one that mentioned your goal as a parent is to make your child socially acceptable by the age of 4. And the definition of that was to have a child that is engaging enough that other children will want to play with, and able to connect with adults in a sufficient form that adults would want to help that child if they came across the child. So Netflix did a docu-series on babies, and then in one of those series they go on to talk about how the children develop the ability to decipher and tell the emotional quotient of a person based on their facial expressions. They often mirror and recreate the expressions that they see or the emotions that they feel, and that's why people always say you always have to smile when you look at a baby, and the baby will always smile looking back at you. But if you change your emotion, the baby will reflect it, being back at that. I think back to my childhood, and I think back to how happy, I guess, I was in pictures, 2 years old with a beer can in my hand. Wonderful.
Cigar, another.
Right? Was it a cigar? I don't know. But you're right in that I wanted to please people, and I think that's how it always started, because my parents were not socialites, but they would always have a party, and then there would always be big people, is what I call them, because they're bigger than me. And coming back to our goal as parents is to make your kids socially acceptable. I, in that light, was socially acceptable and could walk around and have conversations with big people. And right, you don't tell somebody no because then they don't want to talk to you anymore.
Would do you agree with that statement as far as having the kid be ready or socially acceptable at the age of 4?
Oh, that statement.
Yeah, that statement. Because I don't know, it feels like that's a lot of I didn't know that was something that was a train of thought for people.
It was a philosophy or an idea that comes from like the goal of parenting. You and I can talk about parenting and saying like it's to continue with genetic diversity, and we're trying to continue our species, and that's why we're compelled in our animalistic minds to be attracted to a partner who can then bring about another one of us for us to then put our efforts into then growing up to then repeat the same process. But the role that the individual plays in a society and how that society then contributes to that individual continuing their role. I don't agree that it ends at 4. I think it's checkmarked at each of those different intervals, until even after your child's no longer a child and they're an adult, and then still contributing to their growth as a person. But still, yes, I do agree with socially acceptable. My goal is to raise a child that's socially acceptable, because if I could insert litany of socially unacceptable behaviors that we can think of, I don't want a child that has any socially unacceptable behaviors.
That's tough. I mean, yeah.
Ultimately, we can, what is it? Plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm an optimist. I like to see the good in people, especially kids. And I always kind of feel bummed when a kid does play me. And kind of like, so super aware already that they know that adults are always kind of going to be like catering to them a little bit. And then I found I got taken advantage of. I mean, I guess some kids are like that. So
like, should you feel embarrassed or should you feel impressed, right?
Yeah. Do I give this kid a job,
Right, like, you're going places.
Yeah. Go ahead and throw me another number.
17.
17. What is your love language? I don't know if you've heard the term before. There's supposedly 5. I don't know if I could listen down if you want.
Oh, yes, please do. It's not right.
Touch. The touch is 1. Let me check it out. It is. Sometimes you Google something hoping it just pops up right there. You gotta click on that thing.
Is food a love language?
It's something a part of it, man. Let me just go to Wikipedia. All right. It goes words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, physical touch.
So, acts of service.
For sure.
Well, no, see, the words of affirmation and the receiving gifts.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this. So coming back to what I find joy in making that connection, making somebody feel good. The only way that I know that is they tell me or if I see it. The only way they tell me or I see it is if they give me words of affirmation or commit an act of service, or give me a gift. So an example I can think of is if I go to Dunkin' Donuts and I stop the person from putting together my bacon, egg, and cheese croissant and have a 5-minute conversation about how their day is going and really connect and talk about whatever might be griping them or irking them before they make my food, and they decide to give me two, that's a connection. Now, they don't decide to give me two, they give me a discount. It's also my connection. They don't give me a discount, they don't give me two, they stop and say, you know what, thank you so much for taking a few moments for me. And it's also my thing. Now, of the three of those, which one? That's tough. I couldn't pick. Can I pick three?
Yeah, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Like I said, no wrong answers.
Damn.
But yeah, I mean that is an interesting way to put it. Never heard anyone kind of break it down in that way as well. I'm trying to think what would stick with me the most out of those three. I would say maybe the words of affirmation, just because like it came out of their mouth and they kind of like it. Maybe they're kind of too shy to say it and gave me the extra stuff. That could be it too, but just hearing it and just having that audio plus would be kind of cool.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I get cranky at work when I don't get surveys back. Love me? Nobody wants to give me a survey.
Oh, I mean that's. So, are you a big survey person? Like, do you do them for other people?
When it comes to my work, I know I'm a star performer. I know I have a unique ability to connect with people and blow their socks off. I almost feel it's to a point now where they feel compelled not to leave surveys because they're like, oh, this is just adding to the pile, which is partly true. But when a mass of people don't leave surveys, I don't get feedback, and then I feel some kind of way, and then they take me off of those things and put me on things where long story.
I got
but
you. Yeah.
I do. I think about the different areas in which I experience my life, and there's the personal and then there's the work. And when at Dunkin' Donuts, sweet talking a lady behind the counter, that's personal. But when I'm at work, if I don't get a survey, not the end of the world. If I don't get a bonus, my wife will be upset with me, but still not the end of the world. Acts of service. Words of affirmation win at work. No, receiving gifts wins. Yeah.
For sure.
I know you're right in that I feel that the answer to that question changes in the instance or environment that I may be in and where I might want to receive that love from. Is it my employer? Is it my wife? Is it Deborah at Starbucks?
I got you. Yeah, it's not so black and white, Oh, for sure. I had a fleeting question. It had something to do with all that. Oh, I was gonna say surveys. I wanted to apologize because I'm one of those people who are too lazy to fill out surveys for people, and I realize how important it is for a lot of workers out there. They don't know the difference it makes. But go ahead. You could.
I was gonna say, I'm a Google local guide, so I filled out a bunch of reviews, taken a bunch of pictures, but I use that in my analysis of some place that I'm going to. Not just the good or the absolutely terrible, but the mediocre surveys, the ones that like this person wasn't compelled in a good or bad way to leave a survey. They're just leaving an opinion about their experience, and I look forward to those, and that it helps me figure out where I'm going, or what I'm about to get into. From the work aspect of things, it doesn't improve upon my ability to do my work. It solely feeds into my ego, for the lack of a better term, like it's for making me feel good. It's a metric that I'm held to. Like, you have to have this much of a performance, and if I don't, then there's this, that, and the other. But I've never had a problem with that. So, in the regard of not filling out surveys, I won't come down on you too hard. But I would encourage you to please, in the instances that you're being provided a service and you do get that survey, it means something to that person that you're working with. And yeah, do the
No,
survey.
one of those habits I gotta build. I am the kind of person to be like, oh, you provided me good service. Where's your boss? Give this man a raise or give this woman a raise. And so instead of actually filling it out on the survey, I'm more of like, let me talk to your boss and tell them how well you did, you know? I guess that's part of the whole being talkative and trying to connect with people on that level. But yeah, that's where I kind of sway towards that. Just a heads up, man, we got about 10 minutes left in the podcast. I want to thank you again for your time. Thank you for coming on. I hope you're having fun. It's been a blast for me. I think we could knock out one more number, so go ahead and throw it to me.
27.
27. What is the difference between friends and best friends?
Oof. Oh, you hit me there.
That one's, it runs deep, man. Feel free to pass if you feel like it.
No, not passing. What is the difference between friends and best friends? When you can pick up the phone and carry on with a conversation like you didn't just spend the last 5 years in two completely different places without having spoken to each other in some time. And I guess it's in my head, I would see it as what's the difference between friends and acquaintances? I would like to think that my friends, in the people that I consider friends, are just that, what most would consider best friends. The pandemic has kind of thinned out the herd, and my own life experiences has thinned out the herd. But I say that she hit me deep there because I spent the first half of my life in Jamaica, and I left when I was 14. And while there, I had someone I say it like I had a friend who was my best friend, and I saw and recognized what happened as a result of me immigrating to the States and us having that distance apart. And then we were friends because we lived in the same community and we had the same age and went to the same school. And then when we were no longer in the same community, no longer going to the same schools or having the same experiences, there wasn't that need for connection. Fast forward to going out to college and then being an adult, going back to visit the island and visit. It always gotten that friend vibe, that acquaintance vibe after the fact. But 14 versus 21 it's considerably different. And then during that time, I'm sure we both would have had separate experiences. And then that friend aside, I'm now here, and then building relationships with people here, similar fashion. Same community, same experiences. We will be friends until one, if not both of those, change. And if it's a community, then it's not likely to happen. I think, though, to the friends that I've made over the course of time, and some of those that I've connected with randomly, just for the sake of doing a pulse check, because I don't have anything to do today. I've already learned all the chords on the ukulele. Let me call this person that I haven't spoken to. And then just carry on that conversation like it hasn't been 5 years since we last spoke. Like so I had that experience. Yesterday was a friend of mine that called, and that's what's led me to this. And that the difference, I think, would be one in which regardless as to time or distance, you can still carry on a conversation as if you had just spoken yesterday.
I feel you. The way I've kind of answered that for myself, my best friends, I feel like they bring me back to a place. They bring me back, and it makes me feel like that age of when I met them. And then the people I consider more friends or acquaintances are people that I feel like, I have to be older. I have to be, somebody that wasn't that kid, but in the past. So yeah, I consider my best friends definitely the folks that kind of make me feel comfortable. I don't gotta be anything else but who I was when we met. So yeah,
I don't have to please them.
Like that. Yeah, exactly. Ooh, and being people pleasers, that's such a big deal. That's such a big deal. Yeah,
huge.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. All right, well, we've made it to the concluding portion. I got 3 more questions for you. They should be simple. I don't know, feel free to run with it if you like. But this first one is actually from my previous guest. Been trying to connect up my guests together, so I always have one to come up from the previous one. Shout out to Mr. Pizzani. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Mr. Pizzani. Thank you for coming on. And his question for you is, what have you done today to make the world a better place?
I always have this problem where if you're always doing that, when it's hard to think of one particular item that would stand out.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm gonna run with it. Because you told me to.
Run.
So before our call today, I was bottling beer. I made a batch of English porter, and this beer's goal is to be a gift for my wife's baby shower. Gift for the people attending the baby shower.
A giveaway. Yeah.
So instead of buying 40 some odd random gifts, I made something, and I put my love and attention into it. I made all of this alcohol that I'm not going to drink. I think that in and of itself is making the world a better place.
I feel you, man. I think the right time, the right place, it is definitely needed,
But I wanna give Mr. Pizzani a good answer to his question, and I feel like the beer project is not
enough. It's not
enough. No. Oh, okay. I took you up on your invite to be on the show today, and it's through the questions that you've so graciously asked and have been so patiently waited for me to answer that I've been able to share my story with others and my intent to make the world a better place. So by being here today on your show, I am.
I absolutely agree, man. I think you just put out that energy that we should be connecting and we should be sharing our stories. And for me, that's priceless, man. This is why I do what I do, and I'm glad that you had the time to come on and the interest to share your story, man. I definitely appreciate it. I think you have reached that quality answer threshold for Mr. Pizzani there.
Perfect.
My second question is, what would you like to ask the next person that comes on to 34 questions?
I have to ask those thought-provoking questions, and it's easier when you connect with a person, but a thought-provoking question for someone who don't know will be on your show.
How would you connect with somebody? Like, what's your go-to kind of icebreaker to kind of, take a stab at it when you try to connect with somebody?
Oof. Okay. If you had... Oof. I'm just trying to phrase it. If you had no liabilities, if you had no deadlines, if you had no responsibilities, what would you do tomorrow?
What would you do tomorrow? I gotcha. So I'm always curious who comes on next and what they have. Like I leave a lot of the show up to the universe sometimes because there's a lot of factors that's out of my hands. But yeah, thank you for that question, and we'll see who gets your question next. And then my final question of the show, the one that ties it all together, is what would you like your descendants to know about you? If they were going to be watching this 500 years down the road, what would you like them to know about you?
I did the best I could.
Did the best you could at, if you don't mind me asking.
I want to leave it open-ended.
Okay. Hey, let's leave it at that. You did the best you could.
No, but I appreciate them.
Yeah. It's totally fine.
I did the best I could.
I messed it up. I should have just ended it right there and stopped recording because that was a good soundbite.
I mean, you still can, but I mean, I had always fantasized that I would be in such a scenario to be the family member that creates generational wealth. So then my descendants would be like, oh, thanks, great G-Pa Andrew, for coming up with that really awesome beer recipe and making this wonderfulness for us to enjoy. And I realize that that's a very specific thing, and if I don't accomplish that, then does that necessarily mean that I am not doing right by my descendants? So I've broken that down to always do my best.
I feel you, man. I feel you. I mean, generational wealth, that'd be nice to have.
It would be real nice.
I just don't know. You know that thing about like it takes 3 generations, basically 1 generation to get the wealth, the 2nd generation to enjoy it, and then the 3rd generation to lose it, and then the cycle continues. I think there's something to it. I can't say it's true for everybody, but yeah, it restarts. The 4th generation.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, who knows? And hopefully, when I think of people, just athletes who have a ton of money, their kids are gonna grow up. But then I feel like these kids are gonna grow up and feel like money isn't everything. Like maybe there's still unhappiness that they feel, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, my kids aren't gonna get that money. I'm gonna try to use it for something more. So yeah, well, it's interesting, but I think they will appreciate the fact that you tried your best, no matter what. And for sure, you have anything else to add before we head out of here?
No, just thank you so very much for having me on your show. I do greatly appreciate it. These questions have been indeed thought-provoking, and I do look forward to coming back and beating the competition in the rest of the spelling bee.
For sure. Thank you again for coming on. I want to thank all the folks out there listening or watching the videos on YouTube. It's hard for me to say it, but subscribe, do all that good stuff if you're so inclined to do so. Thank you for joining us for another episode of 34 Questions, and we'll catch you next time.